Ladies and gentlemen, we'll call the regular scheduled meeting of the Rockingham County Board of Elections to order. We thank you for being here. Our first order of business will be the Pledge of Allegiance. If you will stand with me, we'll do that. Mr. Steve Griffith will do that, and then we'll have the invocation by Pastor Marty Brim of the Wentworth Presbyterian Church. Thank you.
Please face the flag and say the pledge with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Brim.
I'd like to thank you for allowing me to come and open your meeting with prayer. Let us pray together. Dear God, we come before you this evening. We ask your blessings on all who've attended this meeting, especially for this board. We just pray, Lord, that you would grant them wisdom, support them, and Lord, give them the foresight to plan for the future, that they may be able to discern what is right and just and good for each member of this community and our society. We ask, Lord, that you would help each member to remember that they are empowered by this community to make decisions, setting aside their own self-interest, Lord. May you give them the integrity that is necessary to fulfill their duties. We pray for a safe and fair and honest system that works together for the good of all. We pray, Lord, again, that you would bless each one, and especially here at this time of the year, Lord, we just give you thanks for the hope, the joy, the peace, and the love brought to us through our Savior Jesus Christ. For it's in his name we do pray, and amen.
Amen.
Board of Election works off of an agenda, and ladies and gentlemen, you've had the agenda package for several days now. Are there any additions or deletions from the proposed agenda that needs to be discussed? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
The consent agenda is generally non-controversial items that the board has to approve. In this case, you've had the consent agenda for the same amount of time as the agenda. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second. Having a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, that brings us to our public comments section. Ms. Seamster, would you read the rules for public comments?
The public comment period shall be for the purpose of allowing members of the public to present any matter pertaining to elections or items on the Board of Elections agenda. This period shall not serve as a forum for debate with the Board of Elections. Remarks shall be addressed directly to the Board of Election members and not to staff, the audience, or media. The chairperson shall open the public comment period. Any speaker who wishes to speak shall approach the podium and not speak from his or her seat. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name and physical address when he or she approaches the podium. Any citizen desiring to present any matter concerning the services, policies, and affairs of the Rockingham County Board of Elections shall be allotted 3 minutes. The total amount of time allotted for the public comment period is 30 minutes. Your time will be displayed on the monitor in front of you. The time clock will start with 3 minutes. You will hear a beep at 1 minute to alert you to wrap up your comments.
Okay, our first speaker is Joyce Anderson. And when you approach the podium, would you please tell us your name and your address?
Good evening. My name is Joyce Anderson. I reside at 3008 Edwin Place, Reidsville, North Carolina. And I come not to make complaints, but just to express a concern. As a former civics teacher, history teacher, I always encourage my students to engage in civic responsibilities such as voting. And I have concerns about 8. I don't know exactly what you're going to say. I'm not complaining about the changes. I just want to express the concern that whatever changes are made, you all have mechanisms in place to inform all registered voters of the changes in their precincts, because otherwise it would create a lot of confusion. So that's my concern. I ask that you, by mail, inform each voter of the changes in their voting precinct. I think that's extremely important. That's part of our civic responsibility and your civic responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Our next speaker is Malcolm Allen.
My name is Malcolm Allen, Highway 770, Eden, North Carolina. To the Board of Election, I understand that you are considering removing voting sites from churches to school. My first question is, what has brought this on? Since there has been no incidents on our church grounds. They have been successful and safe while conducting fair election. The political process is the most volatile than ever before, and you want to expose our children to this hostile environment. We should not be surprised because some of you wanted to erect a gambling casino right next to Camp Carefree.
Mr. Allen, you are out of line with the rules of decorum. We're not here to talk about a casino. We didn't do that, and we don't have any talks
Talking
of that.
about that. I'm talking about the board. So,
Yeah, if
okay.
you can address the board
The
on election.
mindset of the board. Okay.
You can
All
address
right.
the
And I didn't call any names.
I understand.
All right then. So, anyway, some have showed their priorities, as I was about to say. The latest recent event of shootings at schools versus churches were at schools. Now you want to involve our children into that political process and around them. And lastly, spending money every few years for unnecessary venues goes against being good stewards of the people's tax money. With issues we have, shouldn't we work on our problems and celebrate our successes? One would wonder if this is another static to confuse the voters and make the process more difficult. Carry out the wills of the people, and all of this trickery won't be necessary.
Thank you, Mr. Allen. Mr. Steve Griffith.
And my name is Steve Griffith. I live at 533 South Hamilton Street, Eden, North Carolina. I'm the pastor at Osborne Baptist Church in Eden. We've been a polling site for many years and enjoy it. I think it's a good way for churches to be involved in the process. And I think people in general trust churches, and it gives them some confidence in where they're voting. And to move them seems to be confusing for no reason that I'm aware of. But I think that allowing churches to participate in the process like that just gives some confidence to people when they go to cast their votes. And so I hope you would consider leaving them where they are at the churches. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Griffith. That concludes our public comments section. 7, approval of chief judges for 2026 primary election. Ms. Seamster.
Yes, in your board packets, you had a list of chief judges for the election day and the early voting. We were missing one. I did put at your seats tonight. We have had a precinct official that has been willing to serve in that position. We had a few of our chief judges that have served for many years to say that they would like to be just precinct officials and not chief judges. They are still willing to work at their precincts, but just not in that role. So we do have a few new names on here. And we moved one from Eden to New Bethel because that is her assigned precinct. The one at New Bethel has asked to step down as chief judge, and the one from Western has decided to step down as chief judge, but they are still willing to work. So what I am asking, if the board would consider these as the chief judges for Election Day and early voting.
Are there any questions of Ms. Seamster?
Do we not have a chief judge for Western?
Yes, you'll see,
This sheet right here is by itself. It was laying on top of your packet.
Oh, so it's on this
Yeah.
sheet? Okay,
she committed yesterday.
gotcha.
And she is also willing to serve as the early voting chief judge as well for that area.
So what does the -1 mean beside Hogan's?
Those are the new names for the precincts. Once we did the changing of the boundaries, the -1 is the new name for that precinct because we had to change it. You'll see that Southeast is now Williamsburg. Reidsville 1 and 2 are the old Mall Street and McCoy. Monroeton is the old Ironworks. And then Huntsville, Hogan's, and Lincoln, we left their names the same, but just put the -1 beside of them.
Now, for the purposes of the audience and those looking online, we realigned some of the voters to equalize the workload in the precincts, and I believe that the current law will not allow you to keep that same name or a name you've used in the past.
That is correct.
And each one of those voters that were affected by that change have been notified by mail as to their new precinct voting place. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Can I ask a question, please?
Absolutely.
What was the cost associated with making the contact to let them at the?
I don't know yet. We've done all the mailings. I will have that information by next month when the bill
Approximately
comes.
how many mailed out?
Probably close to 9,000. And that's an estimate.
Any more questions? Do I have a motion to accept the chief judges as listed here?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Number 8, potential new polling site locations. Do you want to do this, Paula, or you want me to do it?
You want, and then I
That's
can.
fine.
Okay.
So about 3 months ago, I asked our director to be looking to find alternate sites. Not that it doesn't have anything to do against churches. We have polling sites in schools now, have had for years. We have polling sites in churches. The state board had indicated to me their desire to have the voting places in public places. They felt like we had more control over public places, particularly those owned by the municipalities or the counties, than we would in private locations. And so we set out to look. There were other issues that had come to our attention as well. Electioneering was a problem in some places where the electioneering people felt like they could not get adequately to the voters. And as long as that is legal, then we need to make sure that that happens. That's their right, too. I know that some in the public don't particularly like that, and I understand that. But we have to make sure that the electioneers can get close to them, too. There were some issues in various areas with parking, like, the Eden Library. It's very congested over there. It's a very small place. And so we began to look, primarily the criteria was to try to look for publicly owned buildings, okay? And so in talking to the schools will not be operating that day. They will have a remote learning day. So there will be no children at the schools, at any school, the ones that we currently use, or any that we may choose to use after tonight. In each case here, in visiting the locations, the only two that we could not meet that criteria with as being owned by the county or a municipality was the one at Mall Street, actually that was held at Zion Baptist. We had reached out to the city of Reidsville to use their senior citizen center, and due to some activities that they had planned there, they said that that would not be conducive to what they were doing there at their location. The Reidsville Mall was suggested. We talked to the new owner of the mall. Very, very glad to have that there, and even offered after the renovations to prepare a place in the mall for future elections. And then the other one is Comer up in Hogan's. If you're familiar with that area, there's just nothing up there. It's a very rural area, and so the only thing that we could think of in Comer's was the fire department. And once they removed their apparatus from the fire department and put it in the parking lot, the parking was going to be an issue, and then making your way out onto 704 was a little bit more dangerous than where it was. So that one has remained where it's at. There again, to reinforce, I know Mr. Griffith's here at one of the largest churches in Rockingham County, and we appreciate all of the participation from our churches, but there has been some concern in the community about having them at churches. And it's a private organization. There is the possibility in privately owned organizations for interference in elections. We cannot control what other activities go on in those locations as well as we can in publicly owned buildings. And we've set about trying to control that through some recent lease agreements, basically, that we've imposed. So in each case here, Paula and I, Ms. Seamster and I, have visited 3 of the sites that we weren't really familiar with. And one was at the mall. Well, I didn't visit the mall. I knew we were familiar with it. We visited the City Hall, which would take the place of the Eden Library. The parking's good. They have a good place for curbside service. They have a really good, nice room there to do that in, and it would be very nice for our workers as well as for the general public going there for election day. For early voting. Now, the goal here was to put all of the elections, all that were possible, into schools. So as you can see, if you've looked at this list, the early voting would be held at the mall, but the actual voting day in the primary as well as the general election would be held at Mall Street School. Now, that's no different than anything that was done in the past. I voted at Mall Street School. I voted at the Salvation Army on Barnes Street. I voted at the YMCA. I voted at Lawsonville School. I voted at the mall and voted at Zion. So it's nothing that hasn't been done in the past, but after reviewing those areas, I believe that every one of them increase the likelihood that we may actually attract more voters to this area, and it'll be easier access in and out. And so that's the reason that we brought this to the board tonight. So I will entertain your discussion.
Okay, I have a couple of questions I'd like to ask that have been asked of me from the public. And the first question is, why change polling sites this close to an election? You got 2 months.
Well, I don't know that it makes any difference whether we change them a year ahead of time. We could have changed them earlier, but we were in the middle of the municipal elections. So we come on in July, and in August they signed up for municipal elections. So we started early voting then in October and November. So it's been kind of difficult to get this issue before the board up until now. But if the changes are approved, then the voters will be alerted to the change in plenty of time. The early voting for the primary does not start until February the 12th.
So you think that we would have enough time to notify the voters? And, I mean, that's not a lot of time. How will they be notified?
They're notified by mail the same way as they were notified on the changes that we made earlier this year. Actually, those notifications have just recently went out, right? Because the state has just recently approved that.
That is correct.
Yeah, so
So we notified them before we approved the new polling sites?
This was the redrawing of the lines.
Oh, gotcha.
That was just recently
Allison that
approved.
she was talking about earlier.
So that notification went out, what, a couple of weeks ago, maybe?
It went out, some went out last week because there was some last-minute changes, but most of them went out the week before, so it's been about 2 weeks.
Right. So this is actually not very far behind that change as far as that goes.
All right, some members of the community do not have the internet or the newspaper access. I know you say you're going to mail them. I don't know that if the mail is going to do the job that it needs to do in order to inform the public that precincts have been changed from one precinct to another. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't know if we have anything at our seat that gives us the guidelines when changing polling sites in a county. Did we get that information?
The only thing is, we have to notify the voters within 30 days of early voting beginning. If we move a precinct, if it's an election day, we have to move it within the same precinct. It cannot go outside that. If it goes outside of the boundaries of the precinct, that's when we have to get the state board involved. We do have to have adequate parking and ADA compliance.
Okay, one more statement I want to make. I have other questions that I would like to make, but I want to give someone else an opportunity. There are 2 schools that you are suggesting that we make a precinct. Stoneville Elementary School, that's one place you should have visited, because they don't have a parking lot. They barely have parking space for their faculty and staff. We have to think in terms of moving anyone with a disability from their car to the voting site itself. The parking, some of their parking is on the highway, on the streets. So I don't know if that's a good choice. That's one place I think we need to visit and see if that's a good place. You might want to look at another spot there. And then one other place is Central Elementary. Their parking space is small as well, and their faculty and staff takes up all of the parking space that they have.
Now, I don't see Central listed on this list. Is that on there?
It's the one for Eden Central. We had Moorhead and Central.
I got you. Okay, yeah, I got you.
So I think we need to look at the places and make sure that they are where they need to be, and that we have adequate parking, we have space for our disabled people to move from their cars inside the precinct. We want to make sure it's not gravel and it wouldn't cause an issue with getting them there.
So I thought that we had decided to take that to Moorhead anyway. Okay. So it's not going to be at Central Elementary, it'll be Moorhead High School.
That's correct.
So Central
Those
Elementary.
2 are right side by side. I think that's where the confusion comes from. But actually, Moorhead was the choice. And that alleviates the parking concerns and those kind of things. They have plenty of parking there.
Well, I guess the reason I said Central was because of the letter that you sent to Dr. Stover, and you did mention Eden and Central. So I guess that's where I got that from. I don't know if they have been informed that you just want Moorhead.
Yeah.
It's at Moorhead or Central.
You're saying it's at Moorhead or Central?
I'm proposing Moorhead
Okay.
for just the reasons that Ms. Wright brought to attention right there. And Ms. Wright, are you finished now, or do you want?
Well, I'm not, but I don't want to take all the time to ask questions, but just, the public has asked us questions or asked me what is actually going to happen here long before we see that it ends up on our agenda. And all I could tell them was, I don't know. No one has talked to me about it, and I know we haven't talked about it in a board meeting, which is a little unusual that we don't spend time working as a board and not as one individual.
Do you have something else?
I can ask the rest of the questions that I got from the public.
You can do.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, I think a candidate said, how is this going to impact their candidacy? How will their constituents react to a change? And we know that in the past, when we have made changes, we still have had people to come to the Board of Elections to vote, even though we put the information out there. When we raised our hand, we said we're going to make sure that everybody gets the opportunity to vote. If I go to my old polling place, I'm saying as an individual that may be older, I might go home. I might not try to find out where I need to go. We'll lose a vote. And we need to make sure that we are extending the opportunity to everybody. And I know that we can get some statistical data that can reflect the polling sites where we already are, and I would like to ask if we can do that. Can we get some data later on? If we move these sites, we need to look at how the voting turned out before we moved the sites in relationship to the site that we moved it to.
That information's available to you anytime.
And
Board
is it,
member.
well, we need to put it out there so everybody
It can be
is
available to the public, too. That's
Okay.
public documents.
Thank you, sir. And how would you notify the retired citizens and those voters of color in the Mall Street community?
Well, I think that goes to what we said earlier. They'd be notified by mail. I'm assuming that most everybody gets mail. So that would be the way that we would notify them. Reidsville doesn't have a newspaper. And also, let me just say this to that argument right there. There are enough groups in this county that do the get out to vote and notify people that I don't think there's much way that people wouldn't know of the voting change. But to say that, I believe we had people show up to the wrong precincts this time in the municipalities to vote, didn't we not?
Well, that's always,
Well, that's always the case,
That's always
right?
the
I mean, People
case.
get confused. So even if somebody fails to show up at the right place, I don't know that you can blame that necessarily on moving it, because we've had them, some of them in the same places for years, and people still come and try to vote at the wrong place. Continue on, Ms.
So that ends my questions.
Right. That helps to
may I
discuss.
make a comment?
You can do
Stoneville
anything.
Elementary, she's correct about that. I went to school there through the 8th grade, and there is no parking there.
Okay.
And they have not made any renovations or any additions or any, added any parking spaces or anything. It's like it was when I was a young tyke.
Now, are there any more parking places there than there were at the old precinct in Stoneville before it was moved to this community center?
I cannot answer
I
that.
don't know.
The community center?
No, I'm saying when it was at its old location before it was moved to the community center, was there more
Outreach Center.
parking?
You're talking about the Outreach Center?
Yeah, was there more parking there than at Stoneville Elementary?
If you're talking about the one we just signed on to,
No, I'm not. The one before that,
oh, no, I don't.
yeah. The new Vera Holland.
Vera Holland.
Vera Holland. What, was there the same or less or more parking at,
There were only 2 or 3 parking spaces at Vera Holland.
right, that's right. So,
Open to the public.
right, was there more at Stoneville Elementary than
I
that?
don't know about Stoneville Elementary.
The only parking spaces that I'm aware of at Stoneville Elementary are the ones that run down that main street in front of the school. And
Okay.
that's it. But now, like I said, I don't know of any new additions to the parking area. So it's something that we would have to check on or visit or confirm.
Okay, do I have any more questions or comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir, Dr. Jones.
I would like to make a few comments, and I may reiterate a little bit of what the chair had to say, but I was listening to the public comments, and I did appreciate some of the concerns that were raised and did want to address the concerns. I think the chairman did that, but just to kind of reiterate a little bit, back to the churches, I know not too many years ago that many of the schools were hosting precinct sites at times when the schools were actually in session and children were there, students were there. And that was a great concern of mine. I can remember one time when I lived in the precinct where we voted at Reidsville Middle School, going to the school to vote, and it was, in my opinion, it was a disaster. The parking was terrible. Cars were out in the street, lined up to get in the parking lot because there were no spaces. People would go in to vote, had to maneuver through hallways during times when middle school students were changing class, and I thought senior citizens could just get run over, and that was even before I was a senior citizen, but I was still concerned about that. And I thought, frankly, it was a security risk for our children. I thought it was a very poor place to have it. And at that time, I was, long before I was on this board, I only joined the Board of Elections this year. But anyway, I was very concerned about that, and I remember voicing those concerns at the time to people who were on the Board of Elections. And at the time, I felt like we needed to get them out of the schools if the schools had to be open at the time. And I thought that churches would be a good place to do that. But I do agree with what the chairman said about this particular time. I want to publicly thank our school administration and our school board for their cooperation with the Board of Elections and their willingness to close their schools and not have them open to students, because I think that makes all the difference. I personally have no problems with churches. I know, as the chair said, some people do. I know some of the problems that you do run into, and I've heard this through the years, and even now, some of the churches that have hosted it or don't want to host it is because of liability issues. That's just, that's the case. I know that at least one more recently decided to drop it because of that. Another problem that you run into a little bit, frankly, is that the Board of Elections, I think, gets accused of preferences. Why did you choose that church and not choose that church? And people make their own conclusions, and sometimes motives get assigned to people on the board that are absolutely untrue. But yet you can't please everybody. You know, some churches want to have it, some churches don't. Some churches, such as Osborne, have excellent parking. Large church, large parking lot, very accessible. When I was a candidate, I spent time there just as I did at every precinct in the county, and it was one of the best areas probably as far as parking and so forth. But all of the churches couldn't say that. All the churches didn't have that level of of parking ability. And so I guess it's just been my experience, even before I was on the board, to say that, you can please some of the people. I don't know if you can please anybody all the time, but you get the point. You can't please everybody. And I believe at this time, because the school administration and the school board are willing for us to use the schools, that by and large, and we were just talking, I have no problems with taking Stoneville Elementary off this list after what has been said. But I think in most cases, and in all of the other cases on here, the schools are very good locations. People know where they are, regardless where they go to church, if they go to church, whatever. Most people, the schools are not hard for them to find. Most of them, because of the nature of what they do, have good parking, good location. I do think that there is an advantage of having public buildings that, as the chairman said, I think very eloquently, but I think we do need to have public oversight of a public election. I think we need to be very careful when an election precinct winds up at a private location, that private location not take the attitude that this is, quote, our precinct. Every precinct in the county is for the public, and we represent the public. And to me, if we can have it in a public building, if we have that possibility, and it is a good place, I think that we should use it. It was mentioned that it might be confusing. I've lived in this county all my life. I don't know how many different polling precincts there have been in that time, but I do know that it is pretty routine. For just about every election, there are polling precinct sites that are moved. So I don't see why this time should be any different. It was mentioned about the time, and here we are. I believe it's December the 16th, and it will be, I guess, latter part of February before early voting begins. February 12th, thank you. I don't know how good everybody's memory is. I'm not so sure that we would have been beneficial if we could have sent it out months ago. I think as long as we can send it out reasonable time before people go to vote, probably if they get the notice in the mail sometime sooner before they go to vote rather than a long time before they go to vote, I don't see why that would be a disadvantage. How does this affect a particular candidate? I don't see how it does. I don't see how the polling location in any race would affect a particular candidate versus the opposing candidate. So I don't see how anybody can make the argument that one candidate's voters are going to be affected and the other not. And I guess my question is, how else have we notified in the past? If we can't do it by mail, and I understand everybody doesn't have internet, everybody doesn't have a lot of things, but how have we done this in the past? And I think we are continuing to do it the way that we have done it in the past. And I think that we will continue to get the word out as best we can, and I think there will be groups within the county. The parties will do that. Other interest groups will do that. And I think elections will go on just as they have for the last many, many years. And I don't think that anything that we're doing tonight is going to cause any detriment towards that. And so, Mr. Chairman, I know we'll have more discussion at the proper time. I'll be glad to offer a motion.
Mr. Chair, can I respond to the school board has always stepped up to the plate to make sure that the schools are available for as a precinct. It is built into their calendar. When they have their calendar set, they always say, I've served on the calendar committee when I was teaching, And they always say, you know, when it's voting, we want to make sure we close the school at that time. So they're not doing anything that they haven't done in the past. I mean, you know, you alluded to the fact that you thought it was great that they did, but that's just what they do. I mean, and it's, they have 5 days that they can use. And they took 1 day from the 5 days for remote learning. And on their calendar, they have it indicated for Election Day. Now, they have not done the calendar for November, and it's coming up. So we need to make sure that we talk with them about making sure that we have it on their calendar.
They've been informed, and they've confirmed to us that they will do that. So you're exactly right. I know that they've made it available in November, but they're making it available in March and during the primary this time as well.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
have they not always closed the schools on Election Day for us?
Not during the primary.
Okay. That's where I was getting confused.
Not during the
Yeah,
primary.
okay.
They have offered schools to us, I think.
For the primaries.
For the general.
For the general.
Election, right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I will say again what I said before, and I'm not necessarily talking about the recent past, but there have been elections in the past in Rockingham County where school was in session. Now, that I'm not saying, I'm sure that preceded everyone's time on the Board of Elections that is here now. But as a Rockingham County voter, I think it's a matter of record that, in fact, there have been times in the past, not necessarily the recent past, but, I mean, I wasn't a little boy when this happened. I mean, it wasn't that long ago. But I'm just saying, I'm not saying the recent past, but there have been times when there have been elections taking place in the schools when the schools were open. So that's not speaking towards anyone on this board, and again, it predates any of the times that anybody on this board would have served, but it happened.
You're right, it did happen. I mean, nobody said it didn't happen. I'm just saying they just stepped up to the plate as they always have. And that was,
I thank them for doing that.
you know.
Just as clarification, so now the schools are going to allow us to use the schools for early voting?
No, not for early voting,
For the,
primary day voting.
okay,
Primary day and election day.
Okay.
That's the reason you see at the bottom of this page the early voting sites.
I know, I'm looking at it, yeah.
Yeah, we couldn't, there's no way we could do that. We wouldn't, I mean, I personally would never think about putting voting into school with the students present. I think we live in a day and a time that would be ultra dangerous.
You're exactly right, because right now the schools are soft targets.
That's exactly right.
And I don't know if I'm not afraid that they will become more of a soft target
Well-
when we put them back in the schools, but
Comment?
Yes,
Okay, I think it is a good idea to have the elections in the schools because it gives us some continuity of control. But my only concern is the parking at Stoneville Elementary.
and I would not object to eliminating Stoneville Elementary and keeping it at Sharon. I wouldn't object to that. It doesn't affect me one way or the other, but I'd had several calls about putting it at Stoneville Elementary when they heard, that we were looking at moving. So, but based on what you're saying and what Ms. Ophelia has said, I would not be opposed to marking through that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with, having the elections in the schools because it does provide some continuity of control for us and for the voters as well.
can I ask a question now? If we don't have it at Stoneville, do you have something already in mind?
Well, we just would not change it from Sharon Community Outreach Center. We would just leave it there.
Have you ever been to the Sharon Community Center?
I did. I went there during the municipal election.
Parking? Is it?
It's a very good place. The comments that I heard about it was the neighborhood wasn't so great back years ago, even when I was a deputy, but I don't know that that's the case now because I'm not up there that much. So
I don't know, but it is. a
the
perk.
facility
The
was
facility
nice.
is
I
good.
didn't
The
have-
parking is good.
My turn?
Absolutely.
Paula, if this is approved, how many voters will be affected by the changes?
I figured that up today. I think it's 24,000. It's a little shy of 24,000. That's just for Draper Eden, Eden Central, Reidsville 2, Reidsville 1, and Stoneville. But Stoneville, if y'all decide to leave it there, that will be taken out of those numbers. And in your packet, there is the total voters in each precinct, so you can see those numbers as well of how many would have to be contacted. But the ones that are remaining in the same, they've already been notified about any changes already. But the ones that y'all will do tonight, like if you were to change Election Day precinct sites, those are the ones we would have to notify again.
So that's 9,000 that you're sending out currently,
Have already been done.
okay, plus an additional 24,000.
If you approve everything tonight, that is correct.
My question to the chair is this. You've painted a picture of information you've received from the public of, I guess, some complaints about the way we've done things in the past. Why was none of that brought to the board before tonight?
Well, I think some of the complaints were brought to your board before I was brought on here. I know that the chair lady from the Republican Party brought some complaints there. But most of I've received some complaints, but most of this has come from my observation as a candidate voting at these precinct places.
So you're asking us to ratify what you have decided is the program we should follow?
I'm asking you to ratify what I believe and believe improves the voting for every citizen in this county.
Let me say this. If I were a candidate for the March election, I would be here having an absolute fit because I would be well into my planning process for that election, planning on each precinct, how to get vote out in that precinct. Let's not forget, the voter turnout is a prerogative of the parties, the candidates. It's not something that this board does. It seems to me that candidates need to have an appropriate amount of time to prepare to address each precinct in this county to get out every vote they can. You're talking about sending 24,000 people notices that their polling place, a place they probably used for a couple of years, their polling place is going to be changed. I don't think that's fair. And I think the general public has a right to come before the board and tell us what they think is wrong about the particular polling places identified in this list. And I think that should be done before we vote on anything. Candidates, and let me say this, I disagree with the notion that closing the school somehow makes it less of a target. I think all over this country, some 600 kids have been killed in schools over the last 10 years. We voted 3 years ago to keep polling places in the private, out of the schools essentially, because we believe schools to be too soft to target. I don't think that changes simply because we close them down for one day. That one day is going to be an exception which might give the right person with the wrong thoughts the ability to inflict some harm. I am willing to consider what you've proposed, Don, but I want to give the public the opportunity to respond. I want to give the candidates the opportunity to tell us what they think. And I think that we really need to look to the November election for these changes as opposed to March.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. So let me respond to some of that. I've been a candidate. Dr. Jones has been a candidate. You were a candidate many years ago.
And I served as a candidate as well.
I have been a candidate recently, and I can tell you that it would have absolutely no impact on my candidacy because we're not moving the precinct lines. We're not, getting out the vote means all you're doing is getting the vote, the same vote you would be trying to get in the same precinct to a different location. So I'm not sure that I would agree with that. I don't think it poses any problem for the candidates. I think it actually creates some improvement for them because in a lot of cases, it creates better access to it. And in Rockingham County, for those of you who don't know, we have more people in this county over the age of 60 than we do under the age of 18. And I've quoted that a lot of times because it makes a difference in a lot of areas of our life when we start talking about older population that's trying to get out to vote. So for instance, at the Reidsville Mall, there's 3 entrances and exits to that property. There's a huge parking lot, and I think that it makes it a lot easier for them. Same way in Eden at the Eden City Hall and particularly down in Draper. I think that it enhances the opportunity for people to come vote, and I feel like that what we've had in the past, some of the numbers verify some of this, but not all. I would be remiss if I told you I'd studied the numbers to this extent. But I think that, we have people that, for one reason or other, may not want to vote as a certain precinct, but they won't drive to Wentworth to vote in the early voting. And so we may only have the option to get them on the day of voting. And if they know that they have a better place to go with more access, then that would be to our advantage, I think. Now, let me speak, spending several years in law enforcement, let me speak to the soft schools thing. I believe that in the recent past, there's many attacks on churches as there has been on schools. Now, quite frankly, there may be more injured in a school attack, but I can think of several recent incidences where church and church schools were attacked. So I don't think that we can base our polling places on the fact that we may suspect something may happen in the future or an incident that may be remote to the future. I think that we have to be cautious and certainly paying attention to what we're doing, but I don't think there's any more security risk at a school than I do a church. If a person has it in their heart to create a problem or to harm somebody, they're going to be looking at a group of people to do that, whether it's at a beach, as we saw this past week in Australia, or if it's at, a college, as we saw in Rhode Island, or, if it's out here, on the street at a street gathering. It's our job, or as I look at it, to make sure that we have polling places that fit the needs of our aging population, and I believe that these do. It's also our responsibility to make sure that we have polling places in places where we can exercise the greatest amount of control over to make sure that they're safe. And when we do that in privately owned buildings, we actually don't have any, very little authority to tell a private owner what they can and cannot do, which was one of the reasons that Reidsville backed out of the Reidsville Senior Citizen. They have a name for that, but I can't remember what it is because they had events going on at the same time of voting, and they was concerned that one would interfere with the other. So, I appreciate your comments, but that's absolutely say anything you want to.
Please understand, I'm not arguing about the place or places that you've selected here. I'm concerned about board process, how we work, how we get our work done. And again, I think that your concern should have, if there are citizens out there who have some issues about a particular polling place, they have the opportunity, we should give them the opportunity to come before us and express those concerns. So it's a matter of how we go about doing our business that affects, that I'm thinking of right now. Again, I admit I ran for office back in the dark ages. Internet probably didn't exist. But I still think that a candidate would, at this point, 60 days away from the primary, every candidate is focusing on trying to get out his or her vote in every precinct, the highest number possible. I think that we ought to give them the opportunity to tell us how they think this might affect what they're doing. Not everybody is as up to date on technology as you are, Don. There are a lot of folk in this county who don't have internet, who don't have the capacity to go online and figure out where they should go. They call us. They come, they show up at the Board of Elections office. I think that proceeding to try to get 24,000 people reassigned in the next 60 days is going to end up being a mess, to be honest with you.
Thank you. Is there any other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair. If I may?
Yes, absolutely.
And I appreciate everything that I've heard, honestly, from every board member and from the public as well. Just a couple of more comments. I think at least 4 of the 5 of us on the board have been candidates, and I have to agree that, at least for myself, having been a candidate a number of times, I would not have seen it as a problem to do it at this point. And I imagine going back that there were quite a few precinct changes during all of those elections. I'm not sure I completely understood, but I would just say that I think we could all agree that it should be, as far as security, extremely significant that the schools would be closed because the children would not be there. I mean, let me just go on record as saying, as now being a board member, that, and I think Ms. Wright very eloquently said that quite for some time now, the board has been very willing to, the school board and the administration has been working with the board, but if that changes and these are the precincts and the schools decide that they want to be open, I'll be the first one to say we need to move once again. I would very, very much be opposed to doing this if the schools were open. But so anyway, I think that it is very significant that the schools would be closed, that the children would not be there, that the teachers wouldn't have to be there as well. I also think that it would be more confusing if people were asked to vote in one location during the 2026 primary and then a different location in the fall. I think it would be much better for them to vote in the same location in both. And so my question then, if the board desired to postpone this to a later time, I think we would have a time problem. If not now, if we waited another month, I think that would be a problem. I think that if we do it now, we do have enough time to properly notify the public. But if we don't do it now, I don't think that we would. And so again, I appreciate all the comments that I've heard. But and as far as the 24,000. And just so you know, my precinct will be changing, and I will get a notice about that. As a matter of fact, I've gotten a notice because my precinct was recently changed. It wouldn't have mattered to me whether every single person in the county had gotten a notice or not. All I needed to know is that I'm changing. I'm going to a different place. So whether it's 24 or 2,400 or 24,000, I don't think that impacts a particular voter. I mean, they're moving or they're not. They're voting at one location or they're not. So I mean, this idea about 24,000 to me is pretty irrelevant. As long as the person who is changing receives a notice, I don't think they care how many other people are receiving notices.
Send out that many letters that's not even in our budget?
I was speaking from the standpoint of the voter. What I heard was that would be a problem for the voter. I don't think it will be a problem for this office to notify. And so, again, I appreciate the fact that we all have our opinions, and even as 4 former candidates, we have different opinions about what that means to the candidates. But there is no perfect process. I think we're all trying to do what we feel like is best, and that is to put the precincts in the best places that they can be for the 2026 election, and to be fair to everyone in doing that. So I don't question anybody's motives. We're not always going to agree, But I know that for myself, and I think every one of us, we're all trying to do the right thing. And so that's
Mr.
my
Chair.
comment.
Commitment from the administration, school administration, and the board members that these schools will be closed. They have been closed over the last, I don't know how many years. So what's the possibility that would change?
I don't think it will. I mean, we do have a firm commitment from the schools for the primary voting day and the November election day.
For the schools to be
The
closed?
only thing that changed with them was we were asking to use a larger number of the schools as opposed to the ones that we have used, in the past.
When you say firm commitment, is that something in writing?
Did we get that in writing, or have we just, I know that I've gotten it through Dr. Stover and through Paula Rakestraw, the chair of the Board of Education, and they voted on it in their November meeting.
Thing in writing.
Documentation to,
Documentation.
okay.
I don't know if they voted on it, because that's a decision that Dr. Stover has the authority to make
It was
without having to take it to the board.
It was in their consent agenda.
So do we have a lease agreement with the school system?
We do not, but we can send them the agreement that we have drawn up that we did a couple of meetings ago.
Yeah, I thought we were going to have all the locations sign one of those anyway.
Well, and I think probably what we do with the school system is they just sign one for each, to cover all of their locations.
Well, we need to make sure that's indicated in the,
Absolutely. And we'll take care of that, or we'll have legal do that. Just like we'll be sending that out to the owner of the mall and to Comer's Chapel as well.
And
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, on our resolution moving voting locations within Rockingham County for Reidsville Middle School, it is not an elementary school. It's Reidsville Middle School.
It is,
So
you're
that
exactly
needs to
right.
be
So,
changed.
Seamster, that would be Reidsville Middle School.
All right. I put middle and elementary. so-
Right.
Yes.
Is there any more discussion?
Let me ask Paula. How is this going to affect our budget?
I don't know. I mean, I can move money if we need more money for postage. That is something, we did increase the postage budget this year. Until I know what that cost is going to be for the ones we've sent out, I won't know.
so is it postage only that's impacted, or what about, don't we have to change the ballots and everything? Do we? is
No.
that-
The actual locations are not on the ballot.
Okay.
Just the precinct names, and that's already been done in the system.
So in this move, just to make everything clear, the precinct names will not change because we're not changing the voters to another precinct.
Right, if you're not moving boundary lines, you don't have to change the name. The only time you have to change the name of a precinct is when you change boundary lines, like what we did previously. The board approved in August, and the state board just approved those changes to make 2 of our large precincts smaller.
Right. Okay. Is there any more discussion? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
So I do have a motion, Mr. Chair. So, Ms. Seamster, is there any reason why we can't take all of the Election Day precincts in a single motion and then the early voting sites in a single motion? Or is there a recommendation how we do that, or does it matter?
That's up to this board. You can do all inclusively, you can do part of them, you can do them individually. It's entirely up to the board how you would like to do those.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't object, I'll make an all-inclusive motion.
Yes, sir.
So, Mr. Chair, I move that the Draper precinct that the site be Mill Avenue Recreation Center. These are for 2026, effective for the primary. For the Eden precinct, the voting location would be Douglas Elementary School. For Eden Central, the voting location would be Moorhead High School. For Reidsville 2, voting location would be Reidsville Middle School. For Reidsville 1, the voting location would be Moss Street Elementary School. And the early voting sites for the Eden would be the City of Eden City Hall. And for Reidsville would be the Penrose Mall. And that no others would be changed at this time.
Stonewall.
No,
I
so
left
you're not
Stonewall
staying
off.
Stoneville. Stoneville's staying the same. If I understand your motion correct, you're leaving Stoneville the same
At Stonewall Elementary?
at Sharon Community.
At Sharon,
I mean,
okay.
yeah, Community Outreach Center.
That was
So
not-
Stoneville would not change.
In your, did you say primary and
I said that it
general?
would be effective for the primary. We can always change it if we
Okay.
wanted to later, but it'll be effective before the primary. Do I need to clarify that?
Maybe so, because I didn't hear that conversation, so.
Okay. Just to be clear that this will be effective now, it will be effective before the primary. So it would remain effective unless we changed it for the general, but I think that was the question. But just to be clear, we are making this change now, effective now, so that it would be in place for the 2026 primary election.
So just to review that motion, Dr. Jones, I understand your motion is to move all of the proposed sites, with the exception of Stoneville Elementary. It would stay at Sharon Community Outreach Center. And the early voting sites, the two that would change would be the Eden Public Library to the City of Eden City Hall and Zion Baptist to Penrose Mall. Is that your motion, and that would be effective for the for the 2026 primary election? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
And the ayes have it. The motion carries. Item number 9 on your agenda, ladies and gentlemen, is board meeting time. Do I have a motion for this?
I offer a motion that we change our board meeting time to 6 o'clock, earlier time, 30 minutes earlier.
Do I have a second?
Well,
That remains
Okay.
on the third.
It remains
Tuesday.
on the third Tuesday, but it would move to 6 instead of 6:30. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
aye.
All opposed, like sign. Number 11 is board comments. Ms. Totten.
Director update.
I'm sorry, director update. I've skipped that. Number 10, Ms. Seamster.
You can start on this end when you do board comments. I don't mind doing them.
You don't mind doing it first?
I don't mind doing it first. I don't know why you keep going to the other end first.
Well, I said the last should be
Left to
first.
right.
That's why we make you first.
Yes, ma'am. Floor is yours.
All right. Candidate filing for the 2026 primary election will end this Friday, December the 19th at 12 o'clock p.m. In the board's packet is the 2026 election schedule, starting with Monday, January the 12th, 2026, which is when the absentee by mail ballots will start being mailed out. And it runs through Friday, March the 13th, 2026, which is county canvass. Also listed as the very last item is Tuesday, May 12th, 2026, just in case there is a second primary election, and that's if it's necessary. So are there any questions on that so far? Okay. And like I had mentioned earlier, in your packets is the voter registration statistics by precinct after the precinct jurisdiction changes that the board approved on August approved at its board meeting in August. There is also a map of the new precincts as well. The changes affected Mall Street Precinct, which is now Reidsville 1, McCoy Precinct, which is now Reidsville 2, Southeast, which is now Williamsburg, Ironworks, which is now Monroeton, Lincoln, which is now Lincoln 1, Western, which is Western 1, Huntsville, which is now Huntsville 1, and Hogan's, which is now Hogan's 1. When the lines were moved, the precinct names were required to change. So that was the reason. We discussed that a little bit earlier, but I wanted to go over it again. And is there any other questions on the 2026 primary election schedule? And I will do use separate calendars as we get closer so that you'll have that readily available on a calendar form, because there will be a lot of different things that will be coming up. You'll notice that the schedule is now more than a page long. Normally it's a page, it's a little bit longer this time with additional dates and times. But are there any questions on that? There's only one other thing I wanted to bring up, and it's not on the agenda. The municipal election, all of the invoices did go out to the 5 municipalities. The city of Eden has not been billed yet. I'm waiting on 2 more invoices, but those 5 municipalities, I've already paid their invoices. So the invoices were mailed out, and all 5 have paid. So the only one we're waiting on right now is the city of Eden to be billed, and hopefully that will go out shortly.
And that money goes into the general fund?
It does.
Is there any questions of Ms. Seamster? Hearing none, we'll do the board comments, and Ms. Totten, I'm going to postpone you for just a minute.
Okay, that's fine.
And I'm going to go to Ms. Sophia Wright and let her start this thing off.
All right, it is indeed a pleasure to serve on this board and to have frugal dialogue. I do believe that we should think in terms of making sure that the public has the opportunity to give input when we're going to make large changes within. I appreciate seeing those people who came tonight to give public comment. Somehow you knew how to go on the website and find the information that you needed. I feel like if there were other people, if they knew, they would have been here to express what they felt about the changes in the precinct. I do want to commend Ms. Seamster and her team for all the work that they have done to get prepared for this board meeting for tonight. And I would like to ask the chair to make sure that we get information earlier when we're going to make a change like this that we made tonight with the precincts. Thanks.
Ms. Totten?
Bert's next.
Let's skip around.
All right, I mirror some of the things that Ms. Wright has to say. I do appreciate the fact that the public needs to be informed, and perhaps we probably need to do a better job of that. I appreciate everyone that came tonight. I would hope that in the future we have more attendance from the public. That is the best way that we can communicate with you and you communicate with us. Other than I want to wish you a Merry Christmas, that is all I have to say.
Dr. Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also want to just thank every member of the board and the member of the public. I think we did have a good discussion. I think we saw a couple of things that came tonight through that discussion. For one thing, we made a change on Stoneville Elementary School based on things that we discussed tonight. I noted that we also made a change in our time, whereas we voted differently earlier. We wanted to accommodate a particular member, although it might not have been the most convenient thing for some of the members, but we always like to try to accommodate one another the best we can, and I think we do that. And again, Mr. Chair, I appreciate the opportunity to serve on this board. It is a privilege. And just having served as a public servant in a number of ways and for some years, I know that the process is never perfect. And we do the best that we can to try to make the best decisions that we can with the information that we have, and generally fall short of perfection. So I appreciate your work and the work of every member of this board, and certainly Ms. Seamster's work. We appreciate her very much. So thank you.
Mr. Hampton.
I just want to thank you folks for braving the cold and coming out tonight. We appreciate you visiting with us, and we know that our business sometimes gets to be kind of boring. Nevertheless, you've come out, and we thank you. I believe in transparency in government, and I believe that people, the average citizen, has a right to give input to those politicians that are supposed to represent him. That is my major concern about what we've done this evening. Not that there's anything wrong with any of the facilities, but I do believe that we should give the public an opportunity to be heard on these issues. Again, thank you. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
So I, too, want to thank you for coming out, and I want to thank these board members. Our ideologies may never match up, but we are all one in the eyes of God, and we treat each other like that. We're going to have honest discussion, cordial discussion, and at the end of the day, we're going to leave loving one another and hope that our decisions turn out to be the best for the county. And if they don't, then we'll come back and we will review those decisions and update them should they be necessary. Let me just say that the notification in this county is somewhat of a problem. We don't have any public notification really in this county. And I know that this meeting was posted on social media. I saw it. I saw some discussion on social media about our meeting tonight. So there were people that were aware of it. I don't know how we can make that any better with the limited amount of publications that we have in this county. I would say that, if both parties are getting the information on the agenda, and I think they do, then, you might want to let your respective constituents in your party know what's going on here. I certainly have absolute no problem with community involvement. It is your community. However, I will say that in everything that I do and everything that I bring forth, I want to be proactive. I don't want to be reactive. I don't want there to be a problem and then we react. I want to try to anticipate what the problems are and head them off. And so we've done some good work on this board. We'll see how this works out. We're looking forward to probably a very contentious primary. I think it'll be a large turnout. And so I think that we'll be forced to make decisions on a number of issues that maybe we have never had to make in the past, or maybe not as many. But we're going to do the best we can to have fair, transparent elections for everybody, for the voters and for the candidates as we move forward. So with that being said, thank you once again, Ms. Seamster, for your involvement, your help down there, your team. And to those of you sitting in the audience, Merry Christmas to you, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Meeting adjourned.